Hey guys, this is Ray with Double R Diesel. Welcome back to my shop and my channel, and I'm doing another discussion video today. You can call it a question and answer, can call it a discussion video, but guys, I just want to continue doing these videos and address thoughts, questions, and topics that you have been sending me through comments and emails. And I think it's just good to continue and discuss these things and try to bring light to things and, bring things to you from my perspective and perhaps, shed some light on some things that maybe are not very clear right now. So going right into it, a week or so ago, in another video like this, I told you guys that I had actually reached out to my former interrogators at the Environmental Protection Agency, and I had posed some questions to them about tuning what I could. I was asking them, could I do a certain thing in regards to transmission tuning for guys, like that are prior customers of mine. Say, for example, if I got a customer that has a truck with a 68 RFE and I've already tuned the engine and transmission once before, and the customer decides to get, say, for example, a RevMax transmission or install a RevMax valve body or another brand for that matter that requires a new calibration on the transmission side of things. Anything 2010 or newer, the engine calibration and the transmission calibration are on the same file, so I can't separate them. And up until this point, and I'm continuing to do so, I have not been doing any retunes for those customers because quite a few of those customers' trucks are deleted, and I would be retuning a already deleted truck. So I did finally hear back from them. I've got the email here on my phone, and I'm gonna pull it up. So I won't call out it's an attorney that works for the EPA up in Washington, D.C. He was one of my prosecutors, you might would say, during the time that my case and I was under investigation with him. So anyway, I reached out to him and I asked him, I said, I have many prior customers who have made 68 RFE transmission upgrades to their trucks that require new calibrations for the transmission changes. These changes range from aftermarket valve bodies to fully built units that require specific line pressure and torque converter lockup requirements. With any Ram 6.7 liter Cummins truck 2010 or newer, the engine calibration is not separate from the transmission calibration that is on the same information contained in a common PCM, as you may know. So, in simple terms, you cannot retune the transmission without retuning the engine on the same time at the same time of these year model trucks. Would retuning these prior customers' trucks with a new transmission calibration as needed be deemed illegal? I would not be changing the current engine calibration of these trucks, only the transmission part of the calibration. Thank you for your time. And that was what I had wrote my interrogator. And he replied back, "Hey, Mr. Rich, thank you for reaching out. Unfortunately, I am not in a position to offer you legal advice or counseling. A private attorney would be best suited to advise you the law and evaluate any potential legal risk in your particular set of circumstances. Nonetheless, I can direct you to the EPA's current guidance," that's the key word, EPA's current guidance, "and policy on tampering and manufacturing aftermarket defeat devices. These resources may help you as you consider the types of automotive services that you wish to continue offering your customers." He gave me 3 links, and I'm not going to post them in this video. I'll just tell you that one of them is a memorandum that's titled EPA Tampering Policy, the EPA Enforcement Policy on Vehicle and Engine Tampering and Aftermarket Defeat Devices under the Clean Air Act, and that article is dated November 2020. Another link he sent me is a fact sheet, and it is titled Vehicle Aftermarket Defeat Devices and Tampering, and that is dated March 2020. Enforcement alert. This is the last link he sent me. Aftermarket defeat devices and tampering are illegal and undermine vehicle emissions control, dated December 2020. And guys, several things here. Well, Number one, he really didn't answer my question, and that's what I had mentioned to you before. They'll tell you what you can't do, but they will not tell you what you can do. They always leave a bunch of gray area and unclear answers. I understand that, this person might not be in the position like he states to be able to advise me, and I respect that. But nonetheless, I didn't get my question answered. Number two is that he is still employed with the EPA. He has not been cut back. He is still sitting in the same office in which he interrogated me during the investigation process, and he's likely doing the same thing for others. It just took a while for him to get back with me, probably because I'm not under investigation, and it is not his major focus of interest right now. Number three is the EPA is still talking about 2020 standards. And what did we hear President Trump talk about this past week in an interview? He said he wanted to go back, take it back to 2020 standards. And that's the key thing. That's where they're at. When Donald Trump said keeping it or taking it back to 2020 standards, that means just keeping it the way it is right now. This whole thing of rolling back emissions was in response to the Biden administration putting things in motion so that when the year 2027 rolled around, we would be under a new tier of emission standards, which basically would force the internal combustion engine to have come to an end. That is what current lawmakers have been talking about doing away with. And that is what Donald Trump has concurred with. Going back to 2020 standards, not the 2027 standards, which the Biden administration has set forth into motion. Okay? Now, I'm not saying Donald Trump and the current administration and the current Congress couldn't go back even further. And guys, if you want to be able to legally remove the EGR, the DPF, the SCR, off your trucks that you have now, to be able to do it legally, you would have to go back to probably about 2003 standard, to be honest with you. Some people say 2006, 2007. Honestly, you'd have to go back to about early 2000, 01, 03, somewhere in that range, to be able to say, okay, I can do away with the DPF, the EGR, and the SCR. You still have to have a catalytic converter, a diesel oxidation catalyst. It still would have to be there, even at that year model, those year standard. But guys, what's being talked about now, the key point here is they're only talking about going back to 2020 standard, and 2020 standard is the standard in which I was, punished against. And 2020 standards still say that you got to have an EGR, you got to have a DPF, you got to have an SCR, you got to have all that stuff up under there to be able to meet emission standards. So nothing's really changed. And guys, I hate to say this, but I just got to be real. And I'm trying to be real here. I want to keep a level of optimism, because optimism is good for everybody, including me. But everything that's been done, everything that's been said up until this point about all these rollbacks and newer standards and cutting back and this, that, and the other, even what Lee Zeldin said about rolling back emission standards, it's all talk. Nothing has been done. It's all talk. And until something's actually put into law, these CRAs are passed, new legislation is introduced and passed and voted upon by Congress and signed into law by the president. Nothing has changed. This is just all talk. And guys, talk ain't getting it done. It's got to happen. Okay, so there again, reach out to your elected officials. Reach out to your senators for your state. Reach out to the representative for the district in which you live or do business in. And please let them know that you want to see things taken back to a much earlier standard and be less burdensome. And explain why. Don't just say, I want to be able to legally delete my truck. You got to make a valid argument. And my valid argument has only been for one circumstance, and that's older vehicles that have reached a point in which the emission systems have reached their useful life and they need to be replaced. My argument is for those vehicles, we should have the right to delete them. But there again, there's only so much that we can do, but we do have to make our voices known. So please continue doing that. Looking at some comments in previous videos and emails I've gotten. So somebody said, does not the modern emission system use more fuel versus the older standards? Absolutely. So with the modern diesel in today's standard, injection timing advance is turned back a lot. I mean, lots of times, the engine's operating with the main shot of fuel coming in well after top dead center. So you're getting a slow, dirty burn to reduce NOx, but in that same equation, you're using a much more fuel because you're doing such an inefficient burn. So that's one way the modern systems use more fuel. It's just the injection time in advance is way off for optimum combustion. Also, compression ratios in the newer engines are being lowered to slow down the burn to reduce NOx. Say, for example, I don't know if you guys notice or not, but I'm a Cummins guy, so I know my Cummins. So the standard output Cummins all the way up until 2024 had a much higher compression than the newer high output version. And the reason that they lowered the compression on the higher output version is so that they can make more power but reduce NOx emissions. But the same token is you're burning a lot more fuel because you've got the compression so low that it's making the fuel burn so at such a lower pace and a lower temperature. So the low compression stuff is not good. I'll be honest with you, if you got a HO truck and you delete it, quite often time in the colder weather months, you see a lot of blue smoke and fuel haze coming out of the tailpipe because of the combustion efficiency is just terrible. I mean, there's some things you can do tuning-wise to improve that, but still, though, it's kind of hard to overcome that lower compression versus the standard output. Also, the regeneration cycle. So with regeneration and lighting off the diesel oxidation catalyst as well, post-injection is injected, which means there's fuel injected after the combustion cycle to simply send raw, unburned fuel down the exhaust stream to heat up the exhaust components. So that's just fuel being shot in the engine simply to heat up exhaust components and not propel the truck down the highway. So yes, modern trucks with modern tunes and modern emission systems are not efficient fuel economy wise. They're not. We're burning more fuel to maintain cleaner air than we would be if we just went back to the old days. Grid heater bolt. Somebody asked about that. How common is it for that grid heater bolt to fail? And should they be concerned? This person says, I live in Wyoming where the grid heater gets cycled a lot. So, in the truck had 85,000 miles. So, yes, it is a concern. If you're in an area in which you're in cold climates and the grid heater does cycle for longer periods of times and more months out of the year, it can put a strain on that bolt in that grid, and that bolt can eventually get burned down a little bit and get brittle and finally break and fall down in the intake. And yes, it can be a problem. How widespread a problem it is, no, it's not really a widespread problem at all, but it can happen. And like I said, those things can contribute to it happening quicker. I'm not going to get into the solution to fix that. I've tried talking about some things in past times, and it ended up biting me in the butt because I thought I had put out some truthful information, and a certain manufacturer didn't like what I had to say, and they threatened legal action against the video I had, so I took it down. And it was bad. And you know, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole anymore with them. They can say what they want about me. It's all said and done. I'm not going down that road no more. Somebody asked about, one more thing. As far as, getting rid of your grid heater, doing a grid heater relocation with a different intake horn or a different kind of system. Yeah, by all means, if you want to do that, do it. Spend the money where you want to, how you want to. It's entirely up to you. Down here where I live in the south, where it stays warm even for most of the winter. Winter, I mean, it typically doesn't get much colder than about 25 degrees. I mean, we have some teens every once in a while here where I live, but most of the time it's 25 or above, even in the dead of winter. So the grid heater's not that big of a deal here. Up north, and especially up in Canada and Alaska, it needs to be there to help the engine start when it's cold. But so just handle that however you want to handle it. There's all kinds of solutions on the market. Spend all the money you want to spend. It's entirely up to you how you want to spend your money. Somebody asked, what do you think about installing just the separator plate on a stock 68 RFE valve body versus replacing it with an entirely complete performance RevMax valve body or another manufacturer's valve body for that matter? Well, there's nothing wrong with just installing the separator plate, making the modifications within the valve body to do it if you feel comfortable and capable of doing that. So you got to understand that the valve body is the lifeblood and brain of your transmission's operation. So what's inside that thing has to be spot on and it has to be right. If you're capable of setting it up, by all means, just install a plate, put it back together, run it, and enjoy it. And you got all the same benefits as you would be if you installed a complete, ready-to-go valve body. But most people, are not that well mechanically inclined, and they might be a little intimidated by, tearing a valve body apart and, changing out the plate and a few other things. So it's entirely up to you. If you feel comfortable doing just a separator plate and rebuilding your own valve body, by all means, do it. It can be very satisfying to see how little you can spend and getting big results out of it. Somebody made some comments in a video that I done earlier this week about having the underside of my 2013 truck cleaned with dry ice and having it treated with core seal to stop the rust and treat rust. And my thoughts is, for what I've got, it was money well spent. So you can use compressed air to blow dry ice, which is frozen carbon dioxide, as a blasting media. And it is the fact that it's tiny ice crystals, that much makes it abrasive, but also the fact that it is super cold and then it hits a warm surface and it expands as it thaws out. That's a process called sublimation. That process will, between those two things, breaks up dirt and even some small and rust particles on the surface and really cleans it. And if the paint up under it is good or around it is good, it doesn't damage painted surfaces and it doesn't damage wiring and other things. So it's a really good way to clean the underside of your vehicle and get everything in a position to where you can treat rust, apply a rust converter, repaint your chassis, so on and so forth. And that's what we did. So this guy I took my truck to, he dry ice cleaned the entire bottom side of the truck, the frame, the underside of the engine, around the transmission transfer case, the axles, everything. He cleaned everything up under the truck, and then he took core seal, which is a rust converter, and he painted everything up under the bottom of the truck that he possibly could, and even sprayed it in some areas where he couldn't reach with a brush. And that, through a chemical reaction, stops the rust and makes it so that you can repaint it and not have to worry about the rust popping back through again. And he did that. I brought it back. I applied a little bit of paint and undercoating in some places, just to satisfy me. But the entire process, what he did, was phenomenal. I would highly recommend it, and it was very affordable. It was the entire process to have the underside of my truck completely dry ice clean and rust converter applied to the into everything up under the bottom of the truck. I mean, everything coated, and all said and done, out the door was less than $2,000, way less than $2,000. It was between $1,500 and $2,000. So I think it was a good investment to stop the rust on a truck that had already started rusting from salt exposure up north. Talking about the EPA again and what may happen with further enforcement. Because, guys, enforcement's still happening. Like I told you in last week's video, I talked with an attorney that handles cases between shops and businesses and the EPA. And businesses and shops are still getting hit, still being charged, still being prosecuted. So I I have heard some discussion about, the whole thing with the premise of the Trump administration coming in, and what Lee Zeldin had said, basically that the EPA had no legal premise to enforce the Clean Air Act. Well, guess what? Who's going to do that? It's going to be the Department of Justice moving forward. So, yeah, maybe the EPA is going to not handle the cases no more. It's just going to go straight to the DOJ. Yep. Nothing's changed. If anything, it's worse. I mean, if you just dealt with the EPA, you kind of had a little bit of buffer between criminal charges, but now it's going to go straight to probably criminal moving forward, unless, standards are rolled back. Oh, yeah. So, a lot of guys, have emailed me, made comments about, they can still delete, and they're getting their stuff, from other countries and other sources. And you know what? That's fine. You do what you got to do for your truck and your livelihood and your situation. I don't fault you for doing it, but when you spend money with a company outside the United States, you are taking money away from hardworking small businesses here in the United States. And you say, well, Ray, you say you can't do it. What am I supposed to do? Well, yeah, that is I can't answer that. But just know that when you spend money with somebody up in Canada, or you buy something that's coming out of China, then you have spent money with a foreign country. And more importantly, you don't know what you're getting. So that exhaust that you're getting that's not name brand, it just comes from a shop in Canada or off eBay, which ends up coming out of China, that sort of thing. You don't know what you're getting when you open the box. I mean, quality control does not have to be there. All they got to do is slap a bunch of pipes in a box and say it's a 5-inch exhaust, and voila, there you go. And if you don't like it, who you gonna call? They're not going to be there. So, and same goes with the tuning. I mean, you go online and you see this great looking delete tune package, and it's really competitively priced, and you order that thing and you hook it up to your truck and you break your ECM, worst case scenario, or you program your truck and the transmission is shifting terribly, or your engine's running terribly, or even worse, you tear up your transmission or your engine right off the bat because the tunes are crap. Who you gonna call? What you gonna do? Who you gonna get to revise your tune? And these guys that are on Facebook, all these 6-7 Cummins pages, I mean, I see them, I watch them. I mean, there's some shops up in Canada that are just rolling in it right now. I mean, they're so busy they can't even keep up. And keep in mind, guys, that they're a whole country away from you. So if you get dire straits and you need some good customer service and good tech support, you might not get it, because at the end of the day, they know you can't do. You're not gonna be able to do nothing with them. If maybe they take you for a complete ride, guys. I mean, you're not gonna be able to get your money back. You're not gonna get your truck. They're not gonna pay to get your truck fixed if something tears up. I mean, that's just the way it is. Let's see here. What else? What else are we talking about? Yeah, again, guys, as a reminder, please reach out to your elected officials. This is a hot topic. All the YouTubers wouldn't be talking about it if if there weren't some truth to the argument that things are changing. My channel, I do it because I'm passionate about the industry and tuning trucks and taking care of trucks and taking care of my former customers. I got a lot of former customers, and although I can't retune them, I still feel like I try to share relevant information. So I'm not a clickbait channel. That's the thing. Going back to the whole thing about this being a hot topic is, yes, it is true. When Donald Trump come into office and Lee Zeldin took over the EPA, there's been a lot of talk about change, and a lot of these YouTube channels picked up on it and they run on with it and simply, put out a lot of false information that deletes were now legal, and it's never been legal. And, you know, they done it for clicks. I'm going to just be honest with you. They done it for clicks. It was a hot topic. It got them a lot of views. And if you know anything about YouTube, when you get a bunch of clicks and get a bunch of followers, then you make money. And the more you got, the more you make. And some of these guys are rolling in thousands, tens of thousands of dollars every week in just paid views on YouTube. And they're going to tell you exactly what you want to hear, so you'll keep watching their channel. I'm just going to be honest with you, and I'm not about that. You know, I've got a very small following. I think I've got 13,000 subscribers, and some of these guys has got tens of hundreds, thousands of subscribers and millions of views, and that's not me. I'm never going to be there, but I want to speak the truth, and I want you guys to know what's really going on. And I'm not a clickbait channel. So what is this channel going to be moving forward? Well, here's the thing. I don't know it all, but I've been messing with diesels, diesel trucks, diesel heavy equipment, tractors, tractor trailers, you name it, from 2-cylinder diesels all the way up to V12. I think the biggest diesel I've ever messed with is a V12 Caterpillar. But everything in between, and I know it, I breathe it, I sleep it, and you know, there's a lot of information locked up in here that I could share that could be some benefit to you guys, and that's why I want you to keep asking your questions, because when you ask your questions, it focuses me on certain topics to be able to dive in and say, yeah, well, this is what I know about that, and this is my thoughts and opinions on that, and I'll share them. And I'll be glad to do it. I actually enjoy doing these videos. You know, like I said, I don't get a ton of views, but I enjoy it. I enjoy talking about this stuff and relevant topics. So please keep commenting. Please keep asking questions. Don't mind answering emails too. You can email me at ray@rrdiesel.com, and I'll get back with you as soon as I can. And you know, there's a lot to be learned still about the trucks that are already on the road, how to take care of them, routine maintenance, so on and so forth. So I enjoy doing it. Let's see, was there any more topics here? Oh yeah, one thing that I forgot to talk about, and that is ASIN tuning. A lot of people have asked me about ASIN tuning. So I use the MM3 platform. I use a Smarty software to tune with, and they do not have access to the ASIN control module yet. I know other tuners out there have, I think it's through HP Tuners that they're actually tuning the ASIN control module. I haven't tried tuning the ASIN. You know, what I have seen from other people talk about it, having an ASIN tuned is, they're getting kind of mixed reviews. Some people says it's well worth it. Some people says no, it's really not, doesn't make that much of a difference. I haven't tried it personally, so I can't comment on it, but no, we don't do it. Will we ever do it? Perhaps. I mean, if the software engineers that I deal with deem it's, you know, worth the time and effort, they'll go at it. But we already know now that Ram has already ditched the ASIN and the 68 RFE, and now we've gone with a ZF transmission. So that's probably the future for many years to come. So I wouldn't expect them to pick up on wanting to do ASIN tuning, but we'll see. Anyways, guys, I thought that would be a good discussion for today. Like I said, if you got any more comments, got questions, please put them in the comment section of the video down below. Feel free to email me at ray@rrdiesel.com. Always remember, guys, that I'm still in business. I'm still selling emissions compliant tuning. I'll do it all day long. I'm not CARB certified with my tuning, so I can't sell into California, but I will sell where, you know, CARB standards are not in place, and I can make your truck run better with emissions compliant tuning. I mean, we are limited to what we can do legally. We're not supposed to mess with any element of design. We're supposed to keep everything within a quote unquote reasonable basis, which means we're not supposed to tamper with anything within the tune that could affect emissions output, and we don't. But still, you can do some things transmission tuning wise, engine tuning wise, to make the truck more powerful, more enjoyable, more reliable, believe it or not. and still keep the mission systems intact. So if you're interested in that, please hit me up. I'll tell you what we can and can't do. I sell parts. Also, I've got a gasoline tuning business. If you got a Ford with a Coyote or EcoBoost, F-150 or Mustang, I tune those. My other business, DRP Motorsports. I'm just a small guy, family guy, mom and pop business trying to make a living. I am not rich. I don't have beach properties here, there, and everywhere. I don't have a whole bunch of nice cars in my driveway, and I got a very modest 1,600 square foot house. So, guys, I appreciate your support. And as always, I look forward to serving you guys well. Hope you have a great week. God bless you, and we'll see you again soon.